During the Great Depression, families found ingenious ways to stretch their resources and make the most out of what they had. In this video, I'll share 32 timeless frugal living tips inspired by that era, revealing how these simple yet powerful practices can help you save money and live sustainably today. Use a root cellar. A root cellar is an underground storage space that keeps produce fresh using natural cooling. During the Great Depression, families used root cellars to save money by significantly reducing food waste through extended shelf life and cutting energy costs since it doesn't require electricity like modern refrigeration. To create a root cellar, choose a cool, dark location, dig a deep hole, reinforce it with wood or concrete, and ensure proper ventilation to maintain optimal conditions. Hand-me-downs. Passing clothes and other items from older children to younger ones, known as hand-me-downs, was a common practice during the Great Depression. This frugal habit ensured that clothing was used to its fullest potential. Families would carefully maintain and store garments so they could be reused, minimizing the need for new purchases and stretching limited resources. Patch and darn. Patching and darning are techniques used to repair holes in clothes and socks, extending their usability. During the Great Depression, these skills were crucial for families striving to make their clothing last longer. Sew fabric patches over holes in clothing, or use a needle and thread to weave new material into the worn areas, extending the life of the garments. Ration food. Rationing food involves carefully measuring and distributing portions to make supplies last longer. This practice was vital during the Great Depression, when food scarcity was common. Families would plan meals meticulously, avoiding waste and ensuring that every bit of food was utilized efficiently, helping them stretch their limited resources. Keep a scrap garden. A scrap garden involves growing new plants from kitchen scraps, such as vegetable ends and seeds. During the Great Depression, this method allowed families to produce fresh food at little to no cost. Save kitchen scraps like vegetable ends and seeds, plant them in soil, and water regularly to grow new plants from these otherwise discarded pieces. Compost waste. Composting is the process of turning organic waste into valuable compost for the garden. This practice was widely adopted during the Great Depression as a way to enrich soil without purchasing commercial fertilizers. You can collect organic waste, such as kitchen scraps and yard clippings, layer them in a compost bin, keep the pile moist, and turn it regularly to aerate until it decomposes into rich, dark soil. Home canning. Home canning is a preservation method that allows fruits and vegetables to be stored for long periods. During the Great Depression, canning was a popular way to ensure that homegrown produce lasted through the winter months. To do home canning, sterilize jars, fill them with prepared fruits or vegetables, seal with lids, and process in a boiling water bath or pressure canner to preserve. Soap making. Making homemade soap from fat and lye was a common practice during the Great Depression. This frugal habit allowed families to produce their own cleaning products, cutting costs significantly. To make soap from scratch, combine lye with melted fats or oils, stir until it thickens, pour the mixture into molds, and let it cure for several weeks. Homemade candles. Creating candles from leftover wax and wicks was a practical and economical practice during the Great Depression. Families would save bits of wax from old candles and remelt them to form new ones. To make one, melt a blend of beeswax or paraffin wax, pour it into molds with a wick, and let it cool and harden. Rug making. Using old clothes and fabric scraps to make rag rugs was a practical way to add warmth and comfort to homes. Families wove these materials into durable, colorful rugs, creating functional and decorative items without the need to purchase new floor coverings. You can cut old clothes or fabric scraps into strips, then braid or weave them together to form a sturdy and colorful mat. Handmade toys. Creating toys from wood, fabric, and other materials provided children with cherished playthings. Parents and grandparents fashioned simple dolls, cars, and games using whatever resources were available. You can gather materials like wood or fabric, design a simple pattern, and assemble the pieces using basic tools and sewing techniques to create dolls, cars, or other playthings. Use newspaper. Newspapers were repurposed for various household uses. They lined shelves, wrapped food, and even cleaned windows. This practice made the most of available resources, reducing the need for specialized products. Stretch meat. To make meat dishes go further, families added fillers like breadcrumbs or oatmeal. This method helped extend the quantity of meals, ensuring that everyone had enough to eat. Stretch your meat budget by mix ground meat with fillers like breadcrumbs, oatmeal, or chopped vegetables to increase the volume and create more servings. Plant perennials. Growing perennials, plants that come back every year, was a strategy to save on gardening costs. Once planted, these hardy plants required less maintenance and no replanting, providing a reliable source of food or flowers year after year. To plant perennials, choose a suitable location. Prepare the soil. Plant the perennial seedlings or divisions and water them regularly until they are well established. Cold frame gardening. Utilizing cold frames to extend the growing season allowed for fresh produce even in colder months. Cold frames, made from wood and glass or plastic, created a microclimate that protected plants from frost. To practice cold frame gardening, build a simple box with a transparent lid. Place it over your plants to create a microclimate that protects them from frost, and ventilate on warm days to prevent overheating. Homemade cleaners. Cleaning with vinegar, baking soda, and other household items was a cost-effective solution. These simple, natural ingredients replaced expensive commercial cleaners, proving just as effective for various cleaning tasks. To make homemade cleaners, mix vinegar with water for an all-purpose spray, or create a scrubbing paste with baking soda and water for tougher cleaning tasks. One-pot meals. Cooking one-pot meals saved fuel and simplified cleanup, making it an economical choice. These meals combined multiple ingredients in a single pot, creating hearty and flavorful dishes with minimal resources. To prepare a one-pot meal, choose a large pot, add all ingredients, and cook slowly over low heat to blend flavors and reduce fuel usage. Use cloth rags. Replacing paper towels with reusable cloth rags was a practical way to save money during the Great Depression. Families cut up old clothes and linens to create rags for cleaning and other household chores. To make cloth rags, cut worn-out fabrics into various sizes suitable for different tasks, hem the edges if needed to prevent fraying, and use them repeatedly after washing. Homemade butter. Making butter from cream at home provided a way to enjoy fresh, wholesome butter without buying it from the store. Families churned cream by hand or with simple tools during the Great Depression. To make homemade butter, pour heavy cream into a jar, shake vigorously until the butter fat separates from the buttermilk, then strain and rinse the butter to remove excess buttermilk. Make cheese. Crafting cheese at home allowed families to enjoy fresh, delicious cheese without purchasing it from the store. During the Great Depression, this was a practical way to make use of surplus milk. To make simple cheeses like ricotta or paneer, heat milk until it curdles. Strain the curds through cheesecloth and press them to remove excess whey. Collect scrap metal. Collecting and selling scrap metal provided an additional source of income during the Great Depression. People gathered discarded metal items and sold them to recyclers for cash. To collect scrap metal, look for old appliances, tools, or metal scraps. Separate them by type and take them to a scrapyard for weighing and payment. Knitting and crocheting. Knitting and crocheting were valuable skills for making clothing and household items by hand. Families created sweaters, blankets, and socks, which helped save money on store-bought goods. To start knitting or crocheting, gather yarn and needles or hooks, learn basic stitches from tutorials or books, and practice creating simple items. Use an icebox. Before refrigerators were common, ice boxes kept food fresh by using blocks of ice. During the Great Depression, this method preserved perishables without electricity. To use an icebox, place a large block of ice in the top compartment, arrange food items in the lower section, and replace the ice as it melts to maintain a cool temperature. Wild edibles. Foraging for wild edibles such as plants and mushrooms supplemented diets with nutritious free food. Families relied on their knowledge of local flora to gather safe, edible items. To forage for wild edibles, learn to identify edible plants and mushrooms in your area, gather them responsibly, and prepare them safely for consumption. Preserve eggs. Coating eggs in water glass or storing them in lime water extended their shelf life, a useful technique during the Great Depression. This method kept eggs fresh for months without refrigeration. To preserve eggs, dissolve water glass, sodium silicate, in water, immerse the eggs completely, and store them in a cool, dark place. Save seeds. Saving seeds from the best plants ensured a steady supply of seeds for the next planting season, reducing the need to buy new ones. During the Great Depression, this practice was essential for maintaining self-sufficiency. To save seeds, select ripe, healthy fruits or vegetables, extract the seeds, clean and dry them thoroughly, and store them in a cool, dry place until planting time. Homemade ice cream. Making ice cream at home was a delightful treat that families enjoyed without the need for store-bought products. Using simple ingredients like milk, sugar, and flavorings, this dessert was both good and economical. To make homemade ice cream, mix the ingredients, pour them into an ice cream maker, and churn until the mixture reaches a creamy consistency. Herbal remedies. Using herbs and plants for medicinal purposes provided natural alternatives to expensive pharmaceuticals. Families relied on traditional knowledge to treat common ailments during the Great Depression. To create herbal remedies, identify beneficial herbs, harvest and dry them, and prepare them as teas, tinctures, or salves to address various health issues. Trading and bartering. Trading goods and services with neighbors helped families obtain what they needed without spending money. This system of barter was especially important during the Great Depression when cash was scarce. To barter effectively, identify items or skills you can trade, find others in your community willing to exchange, and agree on fair trades that benefit both parties. Quilting. Quilting, an art passed down through generations, transformed fabric scraps into warm, functional blankets. During the Great Depression, quilts were often made from old clothing and feed sacks. To start quilting, select various fabric pieces, cut them into desired shapes, and sew them together to form a larger pattern. Then layer the quilt top with batting and a backing fabric before stitching it all together. Homemade bread. Baking bread at home was a daily routine for many families. Imagine the aroma of freshly baked bread filling the house. Who wouldn't love that? During the Great Depression, homemade bread was a staple, as it was more economical than buying from a bakery. To bake your own bread, mix flour, water, yeast, and salt to form a dough. Let it rise, and then bake it until golden brown. Make sauerkraut. Sauerkraut, a tangy and nutritious fermented cabbage dish, was a way to preserve vegetables for longer periods. Did you know that sauerkraut is rich in probiotics, which are beneficial for gut health? To make sauerkraut, shred fresh cabbage, mix it with salt, and pack it tightly into a jar. Let it ferment at room temperature for several weeks, ensuring it stays submerged in its own juices. For more contents like this, click here to subscribe.